cemetery in the parking lot here at the Bridlewood Mall. And you're asking yourself, why is there still a cemetery in the parking lot of the Bridlewood Mall? And I'll tell you why. In Scarborough, and this plaza has a very curious story. And this Bridlewood Mall was developed back in 1974. And as this community began to develop, they swallowed up all of the farmland that was in this neighborhood, and it was known as the Lemoore community because back in 1806, Josue Lemoore and his sons cleared this land, and it was all forested so that they could farm. And then in 1836, Isaac Christie purchased 40 acres of the farmland. And in the 1840s, he let the Wesleyan Methodists build a church on the farmland, and it was a small frame wooden church. And there they started burying beside the church in the 1840s the original settlers here in Scarborough. And that's the entrance to the Bridlewood Mall. And the Wesleyan Methodists were here for almost 80 years until 1938, when their church joined the United Church of Canada. But when the church left the area in the 1930s, the graveyard beside their church, known as the Christie Methodist Church, was left behind, and I am standing in it right now, right beside me here. So you literally have a cemetery in the parking lot here at the Bridlewood Mall. And you're asking yourself, why is there still a cemetery in the parking lot of the Bridlewood Mall? And I'll tell you why. So between the 1930s and the 1970s, this church was abandoned, and the graveyard here was abandoned. The Christie's Methodist Cemetery. And as developers moved in and swallowed up all this farmland, in 1974, the Select Properties Development Company purchased the land, and they wanted to build a mall. And you see that mall right here. But what they wanted to do is exhume all the bodies from the Christie's Methodist Cemetery here, which I'm walking through right now, guys. They wanted to exhume all of the bodies and move all of the graves to another location But the church board of trustees for this cemetery, as well as those family members of the deceased, refused. And so in order for Select Properties to develop this mall, they had to repair the gravestones, because between 1930s and the 1970s, a lot of these graves, and there were 100 of them here at the time, were vandalized and damaged. So in order for them to build the mall here, they would have to repair this cemetery as well as maintain it. And this cemetery is now a memorial garden. And Isaiah Christie, who allowed the Methodist people to build their chapel on this land, him and his wife are also buried here at the Christie's Methodist Cemetery. And what the mall did is they created this memorial wall, and some of the stones were put inside of this wall here, this brick wall. This stone says John Wright. He died January 10th, 1876. And they tried to restore some of the stones that had been vandalized. Like this one here, it says farewell. It's cracked in memory of, and we can't tell who it is in memory of. And a lot of the stones here represent the original settlers in Scarborough. And folks were buried here up until the 1930s. So once the developers decided to follow the wishes of the church board of trustees and the family members of the deceased, this plaza, which is very 1970s. It's only a single-story plaza here. And with all the development happening in the city, it's only a matter of time before this mall develops into something else. But in order for it to develop into something else, this graveyard has to be maintained. And it is one of the most peculiar spots of a cemetery in Toronto, here at the Christie's Methodist Cemetery. And I will have a look around at some of the tombstones in this memorial wall here. That one says John Fletcher died September 12th, 1881. This one's so old, it's eroded. And here is the gravestone of Isaiah Christie and his wife, Isabella. In memory of Isabella, wife of Isaiah Christie, died October 2nd, 1871, at the age of, I think that says 74. And they were both immigrants from Ireland. And he is the reason that this memorial garden is still here. Get a load of this one. That one is totally eroded. But they did try to restore it. And when the church moved back in 1938, the church was dismantled, the Christie Methodist Church. And it was dismantled and moved to Buttonville, which is just north of where I am in Toronto. This one is in memory of Isaiah Christie. So the one I just walked by was his wife's tomb, and this is his, much larger than his wife's. And it's pretty much eroded here. You can still see the outline of his name. In Toronto that sits in a parking lot of a mall. Just incredible.